Hey people, CzarThwomp here, and welcome to episode 66 of the Greatest Attorney 2 Resolve. Last time, we saw that Sherlock and Yujin, they were aboard the SS Groose that was set loose. And essentially, Sherlock proved just how much of an investigator he could be when he actually wants to be. He's shown his mastery. He knew that he had no time to bullcrap around, so basically, him and Yujin, they just went in there. And they just cleaned house. They found Jigoku and just found out a bunch of evidence, and now we are going to talk to them. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it! I believe you had an even more wearing day than Mikatoba and I know! You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier. So this prosecutor Asogi had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. The original demon prosecutor. Oh, Mr. Naruto! I mean, it's incredible to think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I could break him, give Iris 5 minutes with him, and he would be begging for the sweet release of death. I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. And I took his wallet. When all this started, almost a year ago now. Mr. Holmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. I took his wallet. I took his socks. I even took his shoes. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Holmes. So, what news of Judge Jigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. Oh, sorry. I was just in the Sherlock Holmes voice mode. We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikatoba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah, yes. I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way back home. Oh, okay, yeah, by the way, let's just check this out. You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's part of the top of a pocket watch that you twist to set the time, isn't it? It's called the crown, I believe. A watch would be quite useless without one. The crown? Like what sits on top of a monarch's head? That's a very grand name for such a tiny part. But actually... Yes, Mr. Naruto? If this is a crown, I have a feeling I might have seen a monarch around here somewhere with a very bare head. If by monarch you mean a pocket watch, then I'm quite sure you have. And we in fact do. Right here. What do you think, Miss Usato? I feel sure I know exactly what will fit here. Really? I was just thinking precisely the same thing. We're about to see that the little round component is actually part of Inspector Gregson's broken pocket watch. Really? I was just thinking precisely that too. A perfect fit. I knew it. All right, perhaps you knew it. I'll make note of this new information at once. Okay, we check that out. Ah, yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put up on you for the matter only yesterday. You put up on me, Holmes? I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you had to reply already? You have the reply already? No. Hey, no price is too expensive for me to get immediate information. I just send it to my old partner and he pays it for me. What was so urgent though, Mr. Holmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. Well, that's good news. Your supper is ready, everyone. Ah, and what a feast it is. If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kipper, stew, steak, and kidney pie. Yorkshire boy. That is clearly a turkey or a chicken, Sherlock. Where's your mind? That is the legendary chicken cow. Iris has played the god and has created the chicken cow. The couchin, the legendary meat is a chicken and a cow at once.
Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up.
In that case, I think I'll see myself just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well. Okay, yeah, there it is.
I'm sorry, Hurley, not there.
Why ever not? Are we in set places this evening?
Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. I put a bomb there.
Yeah, and then Yujin just sits down, and then I was like, why do I hear ticking? Boom! Just Yujin explodes. Iris, you killed him!
Yeah, Bruno and Susie can't leave.
For me?
That's right. I mean, especially for you, Professor Mickey.
I love how Iris is already establishing dominance with Yujin.
You're Mickey now.
Yeah, and then basically while Yujin's eating, Iris creeps up behind him with the wine, with basically the wine bottle.
Yes, just keep eating, Mickey. Just keep eating.
And then Iris just clonks him on top of the head and basically uses the Gavin style of murder. Heck, how do we know that Iris didn't teach Kristoff how to kill with a bottle? Iris goes around. Iris basically, she can create the weapons, she can create communication devices. I wouldn't be surprised if by age 20 she created a robot body for herself. Iris meanwhile is just alive. She's basically, you know Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas? I'm now imagining Iris in basically a sort of setting like he is in that game, basically, where Iris is in some containment pod in the basement of some building, and she's controlling instead of using a monitor, Iris uses that in conjunction with a robot body that she uses to basically communicate with people. It's a robot body that's exactly identical to her 10-year-old form.
It's a shame, really, that you're gonna have to die.
What do you mean?
He's gonna die. Well, for a brief moment, I believed it. That Susie and I would have sisters, I mean. Ow! Iris, do you mean? Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened into the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I left.
What? The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikitoba are Iris' father. Yes, about that, Iris. You know, I
know. You can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping.
Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get any apologetic pheasant? Damn it, Iris! I pay some of the rent here! So just who is Iris' father? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. So then, let's dine! While our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot! Damn it, Iris! Why can't I have anything nice? A fine idea, Holmes. It looks absolutely delicious.
Here's my tea bag. There's always seconds.
Then can I have some seconds, pheasant?
No!
This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan. And about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. I love how moody Sherlock is. Sherlock's just looking at that pheasant. Sherlock is just glaring at that pheasant, just, Why don't I get any pheasants? I want pheasants! Just Sherlock gang just outraged beyond belief he's living because of his lack of pheasants. Okay, we can't move. Hooray. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? I'm sulking, Mr. Naruto. Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoma's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Sherlock is never gonna let Iris never gonna let that go. I swear I wouldn't be surprised if just in some old journal, Kristoff is just brooding over. Yeah, basically 100 years later, Kristoff he visits abroad to England, and he meets up with Iris for the first time.
Oh, hello, Chrissy. It's so nice to finally meet you in person.
Yes, Aunt Iris, thank you. By the way, can I have some pheasants, or are you going to ignore me like how you ignored great-great-grandpa Sherlock?
Damn it, Hurley! Why is it that the entire family is so vindictive? Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy. It's full of poison. It's full of arsenic.
No, that or Iris shoved it full of gunpowder, like something out of Looney Tunes. And Iris is just gonna light a match, just drop it into Yujin's mouth while he's asleep and just watch him explode. Even though I played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes, could I discuss some things with you? No. Yes, even though Iris has clearly been the parent in this relationship. Certainly, my dear fellow, I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. Iris is dead to me. No doubt you're hungry to learn some more of my deep love of game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. That's right, I was saving up for the pun. What's he have to say about a sword? Mr. Sholmes, would you mind looking at this? This is hardly the time, Mr. Naruto, as I'm sure you will appreciate. Oh, no, of course not. My attention is entirely drawn to one single matter now, the pheasant! Anyone would think you hadn't eaten in weeks. I haven't. Iris doesn't cook for me. Iris's hope is that I one day starve to death. Converse. So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan then? Ah, this? I think my lucky stars have arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi, Shin, T. Gregson, J. Watson. What? Those 4 names? We've come across that exact same list before. They came up in that unforgivable case last spring. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now?
Yes, where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes?
I have the message I had wired yesterday. Allow me to read to you. Please stop calling us. Please. You are pestering us and you are driving us insane. Enter Judge Shikoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names. Need by tomorrow. Naruto. I say it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. And meanwhile, Hosanaga just is sneaking in to Jigoku's office. He's using Mr. Turtle as a weapon. Hey, Hosanaga, what are you doing?
You saw nothing.
Boom! Mr. Turtle just killed. Hosanaga bludgeons the guy to death with Mr. Turtle.
Good job, Mr. Turtle. Now go in there and get the records. Go. To the event.
And then 5 hours later, Mr. Turtle returns.
You asked Inspector Hosanaga to undertake such an onerous task for you?
I love how he uses the Mr. Turtle sprite for Hosanaga.
Mr. Turtle is now my identity. I am the Turtle Man, as we all know.
Yeah, meanwhile, little do we know, Hosanaga, he's really outside of, he's just swimming through the veins with that turtle on his head.
Come, Mr. Turtle, we have to go and get this information to Mr. Naruto. We are not letting Sherlock Holmes upstage us.
And in my name, I wonder what guise he opted for this time.
The Turtle.
My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyways, the list of names was found in Chichiro's office, as Shown predicted. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was...
It was sent to Judge Jigoku. He was the intended recipient.
I don't believe it.
But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies.
I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. I want my pheasant, Mr. Naruto, and I want it now. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Borya, it was all for nothing. Kazuma wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us. Your great detective's lie. Everything ended out well. I was arrested. Like I said, everything ended well. I took no pleasure in deceiving you, except all those times that I took pleasure in deceiving you and putting those handcuffs back on you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan, and you sent to a prison.
His remains, you mean?
Precisely, Miss Susatsu. And then, I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead.
Oh my, you mean?
The arrangements between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would have successfully prevented the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruto. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England?
The terms of the study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In the light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead.
My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer and the study tour can continue, surely.
But there is no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer.
The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. So, you manipulate me? Think of it as persuasion, Mr. Naruto. I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it.
But if it was all contrived, I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. Why do you suppose became of her?
Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. At least none that you could see or find. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. I see to her, Miss Susato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then.
I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain?
The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. My shoelaces kept coming untied.
Oh?
An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. Okay, I'm kinda confused. I thought that we had to present something. Okay, let's see. Telegram for Japan. Okay. Let's see. Passport. Okay, the Asogi papers. Okay. Let's present everything then. Okay, let's see what else we have. Telegram, Kazuma, Clint's autopsy report, passport. I don't think that will have anything to do with it. Okay, nothing. Just big load of nothing. Every bit is nothing. Every bit is here. Small components. Okay, I believe that we're going to be going to the Hounds of the Baskerville, but basically we don't have that. Policeman figure. You know what? Screw it. Screw it. I know this may sound cheap, but darn it, I'm going to do it. Come on. What else do you have? I already present... Wait. Why isn't this just the automatic default? Why do we have to present the telegram? In order to get more information on the telegram. We already asked about the telegram. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Goku's office that should be searched. So, you obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found.
K. Asogi, Ashin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson.
But we only learned of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now. And only because they appeared as part of the top secret government communications that were leaked. That's true, yes. But at the time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year in fact, when you were both still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments, and only those 2 governments. You're perpetually doing what? How? I use a potato clock. Iris made it. Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret escape from Sherlock Sholmes when he has his eyes on knowing it.
Oh my, Mr. Sholmes! What a fabulous line! A fabulous illegal line!
Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names were wired to the recipient to Goku, Japan, Dr. Joyce Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partially correct and partially mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow.
Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they all somehow connected.
As I said, when I learned of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names because, you see, there was someone else on the list who I believe to be recently deceased. What? Who? Shin, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known amongst London's unsavory classes, among other things that are not appropriate for children's ears. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly, I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list.
KSOG and T. Gregson.
Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself by having Iris constantly harass him. But I determined it would be safest if young Asogi were to stay away from Britain. So that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Exactly.
So, you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes?
Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I had recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course.
So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? He means nothing. I didn't know.
Oh, Iris.
I know he wasn't my daddy, but still. That's very sad. But I'm over it now. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No.
But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis.
A big hole, Mr. Naruto?
Yes. You mean about Asa Shin, I presume.
Oh, of course.
Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Jaziel Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow, but I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. What topsy? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Very much so. Asa Shin was a killer. So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it? Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson, her visiting student's house being merely a front.
Which would, of course, explain why no motive could be determined for her actions.
So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Asa Shin is because he was the target of an assassination. And forearmed with that knowledge, first consideration of this telegram put the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you? There's another among the 4 who subsequently became a visiting student. Wait, you mean? But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma? Ow! He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk. I am not going to say the, because I'm too good for the in the 31st of October. In order to carry out a mission. And the mission was? The assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now.
Surely not.
In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say. Detailing an assassination exchange. An assassination exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have gotten involved in something like that? Let's assume that we have 2 parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would be an assassination exchange.
So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting zoo to Japan, where she kills her target. And then the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting zoo to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It clearly does sound like an exchange.
But what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruto, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to the diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction. Oh yes. Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the newly signed of the new treaty between the two countries. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels. The highest levels? These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but by a contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated. Yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That dissociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. But wait a minute, Holmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Shishiro Jigoku at all. It would be Asogi's target was actually Inspector Gregson. What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark?
Yes, that's exactly what it means.
I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. And now we will be without rent money and police extortion.
Mr. Sholmes.
I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition, that he'd be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. And then he'd be dealing with another rival of mine, the Pink Panther! No, Sherlock with it, and then I would move to Paris, and I would become the Pink Panther! Damn it, Sherms! Why are you just like a Pink Panther? Gregson, I have to shake things up. Come on. Da-da, 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 da-da. And then Sherlock, he takes his fancy cigarette stick and then just blows the smoke, takes a big huff, and then just takes a big drag of it, and then just blows the smoke in Gregson's face. What the hell, Holmes? That's disgusting. That's dirty. Go with the program, Gregson, when in Paris. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. And now our cash cow is gone.
Alright, everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, honey? I mean, you don't get the time.
Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember.
It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister. She would have been Oni-chan. Oni-san.
I'm sorry, Iris.
I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing.
Yes, Susato gets all of the Sherlock Holmes stories for free.
Were you? But if someone like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know how to throw Rudo to the floor?
Yes, because Iris needs to be able to take people down.
Yes, of course. I would be my pleasure.
You didn't have to agree quite so readily.
Oh, but wait a minute. If this is gonna be my big sister, you can be my big brother if you want, Runo.
Huh? I mean, yes, of course. If you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I raised you so well, and now that you're Iris's siblings, you will be my children too. I will train you in my ways. In this house, Mr. Naruto, eat your soap, Mr. Naruto. No! If you live in my flat, you are going to do what I do and believe what I believe. Now eat your soap, Mr. Naruto. Wax your soap, Mr. Naruto. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally.
Right, I'm gonna work extra hard for tomorrow now. Because it's for my big brother and sister. I'm gonna blast the cabin on the asses.
What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what?
You'll see.
And then the next day, boom, giant explosion in the courtroom. Everyone's dead before Ria, Nasuke, and Susato can arrive.
Now there's no trial. You just have to wait and see.
Like I said, with each line, Iris becomes more and more of a supervillain. Oh. Good luck in court tomorrow. Yavi, I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. So the overnight break in the trials proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths while exposing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Shikoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden, but at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. To be continued. No, we are not going to save the progress because now things are going to be going to overdrive because this is the final day of trials, the 4th of November, 9:30 a.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. We don't even get an intro. We're in the court now. Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. We're ending the episode off now. Anyways, I really appreciate that you stuck around to watch this episode. You're a great viewer, and I hope you come back for the next one. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever that you want. And with that, I'll see you next time. Bye.